Some of my favorite conversations have happened over the rims of mugs. I'm Denise Harper, co-host of The Bridge Morning Show with Denise and Chris, and program director for The Bridge. There's something special about sitting across the table from a friend, whether we've known them forever or for just a minute, with a good cup of coffee and an open heart. I hope today's conversation will inspire and encourage you. Welcome to another episode of Over the Rims of Mugs. I'm Denise Harper, your host today. And if you've ever been to Sight and Sound in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you are going to be in for a real treat today as we talk with someone who played Mrs. Noah in Lancaster.
Yes.
At Sight and Sound. Please help me welcome Karen Knight. Welcome. We're so glad that you could be here today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to have a chance to talk with you.
Oh, well, I started reading through some of your story, Karen, and I was just, I was just blown away by so many of the opportunities, doors that got opened for you.
Yes, I'm so grateful. God has been so good.
So when you were young, did you know that you had an interest in drama and that you could sing? When did that start developing in you?
Well, I had a teacher in the 7th grade, actually, who had me sing my first solo. And when she heard me sing, she said, you know, you have a dramatic side to you and you have a voice. You need to think about that when you are getting older. And I said, I thought I was going to be a nurse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But as I went through my high school years, and then I had a scholarship to go to college for vocal performance, and the Lord just took over and put me in places that I didn't expect. And I just discovered that that was really my life's calling and what I valued the most in what I had to give to the Lord.
I love that, especially knowing a little bit of the background in that you grew up with your parents in the military.
Yes, I did.
And that means you probably moved around a lot.
A lot. In the 6th grade alone, I was in 6 different schools, 3 in Germany and 3 in the United States.
Wow.
And in the 6th grade, it's really tough to keep changing places and people and friends.
Yeah.
But I also had such a wonderful view of the world because of my upbringing.
Do you think that helped to open a door? I know that there was a part of your ministry that led you overseas.
Yes, I think so. And I was never fearful to leave my roots and go where the Lord opened a door. Yeah. And I think the biggest door that was ever opened for me was going to Korea to minister in Korea at one of the army bases there. I was invited by the chaplain, and that led to an opportunity to minister to the men who were stationed at the DMZ and kind of on their own. It was at Christmas time. And so I was never... My father said, are you sure you want to go so far all the way to Korea? And I said, but you know, the Lord opened the door and I'm going to go. And I was so blessed just to be there and to see the expressions on the faces of the men, the soldiers, and their dependents. I was able to be in women's ministries and women's meetings there, and it was just a blessing in so many ways.
You did some ministry in Israel as well?
Yes. I was a performing artist in Israel for several tours there, and that was amazing. My favorite memory of that was the Garden Tomb, which is an amazing place to begin with.
I've been there.
Yes, it's wonderful, and you get to actually walk in there, and the feeling of being inside a tomb in Israel like that, and knowing the story of what a morning that must have been. They costumed me in a place far away from the actual tomb itself as Mary Magdalene, and then I came into the area where the audience was seated and spoke as Mary Magdalene and what she had seen and what she was trying to tell people had happened.
Wow.
And exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really was.
So one of the things that I can't step away from yet is the fact that you traveled so much when you were in elementary school and high school, and yet God put you in the path of a teacher who spoke words of encouragement into your life and shifted your thought of becoming a nurse into music and drama ministry.
Yeah, and when you put it like that, it almost brings tears to my eyes, because I know for a fact that teacher was placed there for me, and I've known it throughout my life and thought of her so many times about giving me the opportunity to even think through making a shift in my thinking.
Yeah.
All
right, so how did you come to be Mrs. Noah? Tell us that story.
Well,
sight and sound, because in our area where we are, I mean, that is a trip we all love to take. I saw the original showing of Noah several times, and so tell me about that.
Well, I just saw what was an audition notice, actually, and I talked with my family, and I said, I don't know. I would mean I'd have to move to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, where were you living at the time?
I was in Virginia at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I had a teaching position, and I was teaching, and so I said, I don't know. This is just not a good idea. I don't think this will work, and I'm probably not good enough, and I don't think the Lord will open the door. You go through all of that.
All the stories that we all tell ourselves when we're about to embark on something out of our comfort zone.
Exactly. And sometimes if I listen to those stories enough, then I can get in my own way, But I followed the voice of the Lord, and I thought, all they can say is thank you. No, thank you. And so I auditioned, and they called me back several times, and finally they called me and offered me a contract, and I played Mrs. Noah. I played Elizabeth at Christmas time. It just began a journey on stage with them, and I stayed for quite a while.
Oh my goodness, what was that like? I mean,
it's daunting.
I would think so, because there are some days where there are multiple performances in a day.
12 shows a week. 3 shows on Friday, 3 shows on Saturday when we first started. They're not quite as they don't do quite as many shows now, I don't think, but 12 shows a week we were doing for quite a while, and I did love it. It takes up all your time, absolutely, but I loved being able to present the gospel in such an amazing way. And we're not allowed to look at the people in the audience. You're not supposed to break fourth wall.
Right.
But Noah and Imuna, her name was Imuna in their story, and as the story comes to an end, you're walking down the aisle, and at that point you can look at the audience. And I saw on the faces of the audience how God was using what we were doing, and it was just so awesome. I was so I just thanked the Lord every day for the opportunity to do what I was doing.
So did that begin your journey for the dramatic, or was that happening before?
It kind of began the journey, yes. And then I started writing my own stories, and I started writing stories that might have happened, because, we really don't know what Noah's life was really like.
Right.
We don't know whether Mrs. Noah got seasick. We don't really know all of those kinds of things. But we can assume, because they were people like we are.
Right. We call that artistic license.
Absolutely,
right?
yes. And so I began to look at other women characters in the scriptures, and started writing some of my own ideas of the woman who reached out in faith and touched the hem of Jesus' garment. The women that maybe were in the hillside watching the sheep at Christmas time. Those kinds of things, I started thinking about them and how they might have felt and what they might have thought about. And that began pushing me toward coming off stage and having the opportunity to travel to a different kind of audience, a different way of presenting the story, and presenting it on my own in costume and with music and drama, but closer to the people.
Yeah. So this is something that you do for a living.
Yes. I started, after I left Sight and Sound, I started my own ministry. It's a 501c3 nonprofit ministry. It's called Heartsongs Ministries, Heartsongs by Karen. And the reason that they're called Heartsongs is when I was very, very little, my grandmother used to say, Karen, whatever you do, don't ever forget to sing the heart songs.
Oh.
And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, the songs that touch people's hearts and lead them to the Lord. Well, that spoke to my life, all of my life, all of my growing up years. Oh, yes, she did. All of those growing up years. So when I decided that I would, begin looking for opportunities to speak and minister and travel and just go where the Lord called me with my little costumes in hand, I remembered that, and my ministry is called Heartsongs by Karen because of that.
Was there ever a time that you sang songs that weren't about the Lord?
Yes, there were. I had opportunities to do things on stage, musicals like Sound of Music, things like that. I did a lot of those kinds of things. But I discovered very quickly that it didn't bring the same kind of heart satisfaction as being able to minister to people and being able to speak to people after a performance and see how God had used the music and had touched people, not because of anything I did or said, but because of the message that was in the story and the music. And finally, I just reached a point where it wasn't... I really wanted to do the ministry aspect, not just the performing aspect.
Yeah. When there's a calling on your life,
yes,
that's when you know that. And you have to do it. You have to obey, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes you fight against that because, it does kind of put you in situations where, you're traveling a lot, you're away a lot, and but God always bridges that gap. He just does. And the result of being able to talk with people one-on-one sometimes, or one on however many, and you can see in their faces that God is reaching out and touching them. Yeah. That just means more than anything.
I get that. Did you grow up in church? Like from a little child you were in church, or how did you come to know Jesus?
I was 7 years old. My dad was stationed in Denver, Colorado, and I remember just being fascinated by the stories I was hearing the pastor tell from the pulpit. And the pastor we had was a very elderly pastor. He was very grandfatherly, and he would come to our house for dinner. My mother would invite he and his wife over for dinner or whatever, and he would pull me onto his lap and talk to me and ask me whether I knew certain passages of the Bible, and he'd make me go and he'd make me go and bring a Bible to him so he could read them to me. And he was very instrumental in explaining what Jesus has done for us on the cross, and very instrumental in explaining to me that I needed to accept him as Lord and Savior. And I remember 7 years old, my mother said, "Isn't she too young?" And the pastor said to his name was Spraggins, Pastor Spraggins said to my mother, "No, she knows what she believes. She knows." And so he baptized all of us together. Actually, my mother and father made a profession for Christ at the same time.
Yeah. How beautiful. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so that I'm sure is one of those areas that you can see how your testimony has just built on that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
When you were growing up, did you have siblings?
I didn't. I'm an only child.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's been good, and sometimes that has not been good. Yeah. I kind of miss the opportunity to grow up with others.
Siblings.
Yes, yes. But I've had siblings throughout my life. Siblings that are not of blood, but were part of our family. Yeah. And that was very helpful. Yeah. So
God knows when we need a sister.
Absolutely. And I have a wonderful sister here in Delaware, and I'm so very thankful for that.
That's so good. Okay, you were telling me that you moved to the Delaware area couple of years ago?
2 years ago, yeah. Yes, I was living in Virginia at the time.
What brought you here?
Well, let me back up a little in the story. I lost my husband 3 years ago.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I am too. He was an amazing man. It was a COVID issue. They put him on a ventilator, and that was the mistake of he wasn't
Never
able to
recover
from that. Losing him was immense.
Sure.
in what it did to my heart and my ministry. He traveled with me, did my sound for me, helped me with all of the things that I know nothing about, like hooking up a microphone and all those
the technical things.
Yeah, all those lovely technical things. Yeah. And he did a lot of the driving for me, so I didn't have to. And losing him was difficult in so many ways. He was a Jersey boy. He loved the Jersey Shore. He loved all of the being at the ocean.
Yeah.
And we had come to see the ocean area in Delaware, and he liked it. And he said, I think we should consider just moving to someplace where we can get to the beach every now and then,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, as long as I have him to help me get different places when I'm ministering in different places, that should be okay. Yeah. And we came and looked in Delaware, and I thought, oh, this would be nice. And it is, but it's much harder with just me.
Yeah.
But because I lost him, I needed to make a change. I needed to make a change. The memories were overtaking my heart, and grief is difficult. You never really I'm discovering the Lord leads you through it, but you never get over it.
It sneaks up on you sometimes,
It
doesn't
does. It really does. And I just felt the need to be someplace different. And so I came to Delaware. And that's been good and that's been bad, because having come to Delaware with him would have been wonderful. Being here by myself has taken a little bit of learning and getting used to and finding my way, and sometimes with tears and sometimes with joy. Yeah. So I'm learning.
What is helping you in the adjustment time in that?
Well, I do have that sister that I talked to you about. She lives in Delaware, and I am so thankful for her, because having somebody nearby that I know and that I can and knows me, knows my story. Is supportive of the ministry that I have, and has helped me kind of put my sights on ministry. The Lord opens the doors that He wants opened and closes the doors that He wants closed. And in the meantime, the ministry that I have to offer didn't go away because I lost my husband. The ability to do it didn't go away. The ability to do it on my own is something I'm learning. But the Lord had a place for me here, and she helped me see that.
Yeah.
And so...
What a gift.
Yes, she is a gift. She is a gift.
Okay, so I noticed on your signature on your email, it said, I think it said, show writer for Unshackled. And I have to tell you, Karen, I did a double take when I saw that, because I remember growing up hearing Unshackled on the radio.
Yes.
A very long time ago. I'm not going to be very specific, but I was curious, because I didn't even realize that radio drama radio show was still around.
Yes.
Even. And so I kind of did a little deep dive on the show and looked it up online, and it started in 1950.
It did.
How did you come to be a show writer for Unshackled?
Well, that's a strange little twist of what the Lord was putting in front of me too. My husband and I were looking for opportunities for me to have more time at home rather than traveling quite so much to do women's events and church events and things like that. And he said, what if you were writing something? And I had already written some things for devotional magazines and devotional books and so forth, and had those published. So I just happened to be in the right place at the right time when Unshackled was attending a convention, and they were talking about always looking for people who understood scripts.
Okay.
Well, I've been with Sight and Sound long enough. I know what writing
sure
a good
do.
script means, and although I didn't do any of their writing, I trained
Yes.
with their scripts, and so my husband said, "Just try it. Just talk to them." And I thought, I don't know enough. I don't think I can do it. They had me write something for them, and the next thing I knew, I was writing scripts that were being produced and being. The wonderful thing is the stories are sent in by real people whose lives have been touched by Jesus and who need God in their lives, and how their lives have changed from when they didn't know the Lord until coming to Christ. Yeah. The stories were amazing, and they're real stories. And so when they sent me the first one, I did the best I could. And the next thing I knew, they were sending me scripts, and I was writing for Unshackled, and they're produced and sent. They're still. I mean, they've been doing this since, what did you just say? 1950. Yeah, and they're sent all over the world. They translate the scripts into 23 different languages.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just a powerful thing to be a part of. It's interesting if you listen to a script. They've got the old.
The organ?
Yes, the organ sounds.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, exactly. But the stories just grip your heart. And so I that's how I fell into that, and love having the opportunity to, and I use, especially because the people are people who are living out their testimony. So I would very frequently, the producer would allow me to call them and talk to them individually.
Yes.
So I got their story right from them, and it just made the biggest difference in the way you write the script.
Yeah, you're helping somebody else tell their story.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yes, and I met some lovely people because of that.
What an amazing story. Wow. Okay. So of all the things that you've done, I remember that something else that you were connected with was Bill Gaither, Homecoming artists.
Yes.
You've worked with some of them.
I have worked with some of them.
you have a very broad list of connections and doors that God has opened for you.
I have been so blessed and so thankful that the Lord has allowed me to just keep finding ways and opportunities to use what He's given me. I never really expected things to go the way they did with writing for Unshackled. I really never expected, honestly, when I went to audition for Sight and Sound, I never expected to actually have a place in the cast. But going forward, each thing just came into my life at the right time. I think, and the music and the story have always been the most important thing to me, because that's what leads people to the foot of the cross. It just is, and I learned so much by doing all of that. I don't know if that answers your original question.
It does. I was wondering what it is that you love the most, and you just shared that.
Yeah.
The humanity of the story, I think, is what pulls our heart closer. I think that's one of the reasons why people have gravitated so strongly to The Chosen.
Absolutely. I think so too, and the reason I have gravitated that way, besides the fact that I love drama and music and so forth, I think it's because it makes these people real. And all of a sudden, the things that you've been reading in the Bible, and out of whatever translation you're reading from, it makes it very different when somebody is standing on a screen in front of you saying these words with emotion and strength in their voice in a different way than the way you read it off the page. Not saying that you don't get that from reading it off the page.
Sure.
But you make a personal connection. Suddenly, that person is kind of like you. And the feelings and the thoughts that they have in what they're learning from Jesus becomes real in their life. You see it becoming real in their life. Suddenly, it makes a connection in your heart.
Yeah.
And it becomes real in your heart.
Don't you think the power of recognizing that I'm not the only one that feels this way
Yes.
is so overwhelming sometimes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, when I do a women's event, if I'm speaking for a women's convention or if I'm speaking, to a church for a service or whatever, as a character, I love having people come to me afterwards and say, I understand that person so much more because such and such happened to me and it led me to the Lord, or I understood what God has been trying to get me to see because of the way this has affected me.
Who's your favorite Bible character to play?
Oh gosh,
That's like asking you to pick a child, isn't it? Your favorite child.
it really is. It really is. I have developed so many different characters, but I think the one that is probably the most like me, I do a Christmas, the Three Wise Women of Christmas, and I portray three different women.
Okay.
The first is a shepherdess, one is Mary herself, and the other one is the innkeeper's wife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the innkeeper's wife really intrigued me when I was writing her story from my own thoughts and heart, because I suspect she was overly committed, overly busy, really having a difficult time keeping her life going the direction it's supposed to go, because the inn was crowded and,
There was no room there.
there was no
So
room
she
there.
was busy.
Yes, she was busy. She's a lot like me. I tend to overcommit sometimes and try to figure out ways to make everything work in my life the way it's supposed to, when I realize I have to sit down and just be quiet and recognize the silent night of my soul, so that I can come to the feet of the Lord and recognize who I am, that I'm not just the innkeeper's wife. I'm not just the one who picks up the dirty clothes and washes the dirty sheets. I am, in fact, someone that Jesus gave his life for, and this incredible miracle could be missed if I didn't open my eyes to the Lord. So I guess between she and Martha,
Oh,
I'm very
think I could
definitely
play Martha pretty well too.
I'm very definitely a Martha, because I'm constantly thinking, oh, this has to be right, that has to be right.
Yeah.
And sitting at the feet of Jesus, I need to spend more time sitting at the feet of Jesus. So, yeah.
Did you journal when you were younger?
I didn't, but I read constantly.
Okay.
I didn't do a lot of journaling. My sister actually is the one who made me start doing a little bit more journaling since I lost my husband, actually. And that's been really, really helpful in the
Healing.
grief journey that I've taken.
Yeah.
But I didn't do a lot of it as a child. But we traveled so much that I was constantly reading, and I would find my own thoughts and self within the characters that I was reading about.
I wondered, because the creative part of what you do starts somewhere, and for me, it starts putting it on paper. Writing those things down.
Yes.
And sometimes, if I'm feeling like I need an idea, and I'm just waiting, I'm waiting for that creativity to spark. I just start writing. Thoughts. Sometimes it's a brain dump of all the things that are going on, because then it's like a clean slate. Now I've got all of that out, and I just wait.
Yeah. And yes, and those waiting moments are the times that you find your way through whatever it is you're supposed to find your way through when you're writing it, those waiting moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what are you looking forward to the most in 2025 or beyond? What are you praying for, like hoping that you can share?
Well, thank you. I am truly praying that the opportunities in the Delaware area that I have moved to will grow, so that I have more opportunities to speak into the lives of the ladies that I speak to, or the people that I speak to. I've had a number of churches that have just been very kind and invited Heartsongs Ministries to come into their worship service or to come into their women's events.
Yeah.
I've done a number of women's teas, women's events and church events and so forth. I am praying that the creativity that I feel in my heart and soul will still be usable, even though I have moved into a different area.
Yeah.
I'm just praying that the doors will open and the Lord will use me.
There are fresh new doors waiting to open for you.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, we will certainly include all of your ministry contact information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. Is there anything else that I missed, or something that you'd really love to share?
You have done a wonderful job.
I try to leave no stone unturned.
Well, you do that very well, and I feel like you have taken me down a wonderful path here, and also made me look ahead. So thank you for that.
Well, that's good.
I appreciate that.
So glad. Thank you for coming in and sharing your story, Karen.
Thank you for allowing me to do that.
We all have a story, and God is at work in yours, whether you feel like it or not. And so our prayer today is that you would just lean in to Jesus and let him speak to you, and maybe spark a little creativity your way as well. Thanks for joining me today. Until the next sip, I'm Denise Harper, your host for Over the Rims of Mugs. We were never meant to journey alone. Whether you're having a great day or a hard one, we need each other to celebrate and to stand in the gap. Sharing our stories helps remind us that we're not alone. And when we sit with women who sit at the feet of Jesus, the conversations are different. We walk away feeling inspired, not inferior, because we know this Christian walk is a race, but not a competition. Thank you for listening to this episode of Over the Rims of Mugs. To share a comment, suggest a topic, or ask a question, email us podcast@wearethebridge.org. And please join me for a daily devotion on my blog entitled Treasured Inside. You can find it directly at deniseharper.blog or at wearethebridge.org/devotion. Until our next sip, I'm your host, Denise Harper, encouraging you to catch up with a friend or make a new one and enjoy some good conversation over the rims of mugs.